Thanks very much for joining us today, Hashan. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, James. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Well, thank you for sharing your time with us today, and I'm here to talk to you about your client placement. Let's just kick things right off with, when you think back to the training, this was over a year ago. How do you feel like you transitioned from the training in the 1010 Academy to your very first client work?
With training, I think it was a massive backbone for me when I went into my client, as we would talk core concepts about technology, learning different sides of technology, so that I was able to transition that to my client work as I was in and out with a lot of other things, whether that be business side and technical side. So the knowledge that I learned there had really helped me sort of bring new ideas to the table, reflect on current ideas, maybe how we can adapt that and mitigate any issues that would come up.
That's great. And I wonder if you could take us through your placement. Now, you're just finishing up 1 year in the chemicals industry, so you don't have to take us through every day of your placement. But, 1 year is quite a while, and it was your very first placement. So, could you take us through maybe what it was like way back when you started, and maybe how it's a little bit different, by the time you got to the end of it?
Yeah, of course. So I started about a year ago now. It's wrapping up to a year, and we were thrown, if I'm being honest, into the deep end through my manager, as it was quite a new project. It's quite global in that sense. So it was very interesting to learn because it's applying the knowledge that I had learned in 1010. So then there was a lot of questions being asked, things like that, a lot of asked from me. So it put me in a position to where I had to sort of swim upstream and learn these new traits and maybe ways of working, things like that. But with the help of 1010 and my manager at my client, they're able to get me through, and I'd learned so much more than I would have ever learned if I was a bit more relaxed or something like that. So it was definitely worth it. But again, I think it always will start in this line of work where you're going to swim upstream a little while before you kind of catch on onto what's going on in the client, because every company works differently. So it's a very interesting sort of insight that I had. And now that I know what I'm up against, I'm pretty sure I'll be ready for my next client.
Terrific. Could you explain a little bit about the work that you were doing, maybe some of the projects that you were helping out with and some of the teams that you were interacting with?
Yeah, of course. So the project required me to activate a full function of a CRM system, and then alongside attach a contact management system. So that first started with the working with the business team and seeing their requirements, what was required of me, and their various skills and what they needed. And then afterwards, I realized I had a bit more technical understanding due to my knowledge at 1010 and prior experience. So I delved speaking into the IT team and looking into what they were looking to implement, what they currently had in the pipeline, and help understand any potential dependencies and how we can utilize that to help make a better project outcome. So I worked with the customer service team of the company so that we could get an understanding of what they need, what would be ideal for them, what sort of things do they need to show up when using their systems. So once we spoke with the customer service, we spoke with business, we spoke with the technical team, and we spoke with the various sectors as well, which was very interesting. And then we had to meet around 30 plus stakeholders, which was very exciting, very interesting, as you learn different ways, different perspectives on certain matters. So it was very interesting, and it was a wide variety of people that I had to work with.
Wow, over 30. Quite a lot of different priorities to balance then when you're approaching your work. Wow. Could you take us through what an average day maybe was? And again, spending 1 year on a project, I'm sure there were many different types of average day, but maybe towards the end, in particular when you're interacting with all those different teams, what was an average day for you like?
So if I take it to the beginning of my time at my client, it was just getting to know everyone, as there were so many stakeholders on board. So I booked introductory meetings with each of these stakeholders to get a better understanding of their outlook on the project and if that would cause any concerns and what their concerns were, so we could understand that and help them understand why this project would be good for the company. And then we also spoke with our managers to sort of get an understanding of what sort of risks we're looking at and how we can best mitigate those risks. And then as time had gone on and we started going into the various phases of our project, we got more meetings. I think it got to a point where we had about 10, 15 meetings a week, which was very interesting, just to scope out and understand what the requirements were.
Mm.
And then as we went on, I was in charge of booking meetings, making sure all the stakeholders were available across different time zones. So that was very interesting. We had some 6 a.m. calls as well, which was very exciting. We also had time to speak and understand what sort of risks were happening. We logged that in a RAID log, mentioning every risk, issue, assumptions, dependencies. And I was in charge of looking after that register and get an understanding of what we need to sort of divert our attention to, what sort of opportunities do we have based off this project, what other projects are in the pipeline, things like that. So I had a chance to speak with various project teams in that sense. So I had to book meetings to understand their dependencies and how that could interlink and make a better project outcome. We also had to speak with senior management teams as well to make sure that they were on board with the project, to make sure we got their approvals, things like that. While I was working on this, I had some other projects alongside that I was working on, which was very exciting, where I had to lead as a main project manager, which was very exciting, and helping streamline their communication services. So this was very, very interesting and very exciting, and it was just an interesting time for my first client.
Yeah, it sounds like a really wide variety of work going on there, which is obviously terrific. That's what we love to hear from people. Was there a moment where everything just seemed to like click into place, where, you know, because it's your first placement and you've got so much going on in so many different projects, you know, it's completely understandable if things were overwhelming at times, but was there a moment when you realized, everything's kind of come together?
Yeah, definitely. I think the time where I sort of clicked and I finally got everything was when we were closing out our first phase of the project. It sort of summarized what we had collected and what myself as a project manager was able to understand, and what I had summarized quite well. Going to show how much effort I had put into the project and how much I had collected by myself, which was very exciting. And it's like a sense of accomplishment that you get, which was really exciting to understand. And I think you'll have those multiple clicks as you go through the project, as projects can be up and down, things like that, where you'll have that trough of sort of hard work, determination, kind of feeling overwhelmed at times, but then it all kind of pays off in like these closing moments, things like that. So it's all, I think with a project, it'll always be up and down, but then there'll be multiple times where it's clicked, and I feel very proud of myself.
Yeah, terrific. And when you reflect on the 1010 Academy training, were there any particular modules or exercises which really kind of shone through and you know, really connected? Like, okay, that's really valuable because I'm doing that every day pretty much.
I think what main takeaway I'd say is all the training was very important to me, because I was quite excited when I joined 1010 to learn anything and everything I can. So I did all the various different modules. So I did the core training, and then we also went into our developer side training, which was really exciting. But I wanted to expand my knowledge, even if I didn't understand it properly, just to be in that environment. So I did database training as well as our business analysis training. So I did all three paths just to get a better understanding. And I think it's safe to say I've applied all three knowledges there. So it's definitely worthwhile, the 1010 training that I did. I think every module counts towards something I did in my client work. So favorites wise, I'd probably say the business analysis developer, as much as it does kind of stray from different paths. But I think every single part of the module I enjoyed in some way or another.
Well, that's just a ringing endorsement. So thank you very much for that. Super. When it comes to your client work, were there any tools or frameworks that you were using and gaining experience in? I know that you mentioned some of it when you took us through the overall project work, but anything else that you picked up along the way?
Sure. I think with thanks to my manager, I had a lot of software and tools I used. So just for an example, for project management, we used Smartsheet, which was a software I had never used before. And now looking back 1 year later, I'm safe to say I'm quite versed in Smartsheet and help managing our various different reports, generating reports, allowing owners to be assigned to different deliverables, which was really exciting. And I'm certified in that, which was also really exciting. So I've got Smartsheet for project management, but then I also made use of Mural and Miro, which were diagram process drawing softwares, which allowed me to sort of understand how to map out processes within the company, which was very exciting. I also worked with SAP as they use it as their CRM system, which was very exciting. I was able to delve in a bit more technical there because I had a bit of a technical understanding. So I was able to fulfill employee tickets using their ServiceNow system, which allowed me to bring them in as a new customer or an account, set that up in our CRM system and make sure they're fulfilled and they meet those requirements. I'd probably have a lot more, to be honest with you, but I think we could spend all day here listing these off. But safe to say I worked with 7 or 8 different softwares and tools, definitely, my client.
No, I imagine there's no end to the number of things which even you might just use a small amount of knowledge, or if you're like shadowing someone or talking to other stakeholders, well, we do it over here with this tool, and you just gotta know enough to hook in and be like, oh, okay, I understand it enough to hold on. But yeah, thank you very much for taking us through those. You mentioned your manager a little while ago. I'm sure they were a massive help, but were there any other ways that your client supported your development? That could either be through training sessions, one-to-ones, or assigning you specific projects, or shadowing people. How was that support?
My manager was very helpful, if I'm being honest. They always threw me into every sort of challenge I could find, any sort of basics for me to find some learning, some understanding. And a few examples was we set up daily stand-ups, Monday to Friday, sort of get an understanding of where we're at, if we have any blockers, things like that. Sort of maybe even share what we're going on in our lives. Just say it's like a moral support. We also had one-to-ones, my manager and I. So we'd catch up every Thursday just to say, how am I doing? And it wouldn't be work related at all. It would just be sort of understanding myself. Just be like, how are you finding this? Are you finding this overwhelming? Maybe give me some advice, things like that. Help push me towards meeting my development goals that we'd laid out together with my manager. Also looking for direction. My manager was a great help. I think we also had given an individual project, which I had to work on, where I had to help streamline customer communications, which was very exciting. They used a plethora of different systems, which started to get quite messy. So it was my job to help streamline that and bring that to maybe 3 or 4 only. And I think safe to say that I've left my mark at my client by allowing them to build a diagram that I'd created and work off it. So now they know what they need to use and what sort of communications need to go where. So definitely, if it wasn't for my manager, I probably wouldn't have learned as much at all.
That's amazing. It's great to see, the connection that you make with the manager, and how they're able to, talk to you, not just about work and obviously the training and the formal, how to get through a project, but taking the time just to reflect on, how are you finding it? How do you work best? And all of those kind of personal attributes. That's amazing.
No, thank you.
And flipping it now to the 1010 side of things, was there any support that you received through the 1010 Academy team?
Oh, definitely. I think support is an understatement. They sort of guided my every hand in such a way that, again, just as much as my client helped, 1010 did a lot of work with me, where I got to speak with a lot of the trainers at the company at 1010, and sort of get an understanding based off their experience that they have, as a lot of the trainers come from a similar background as us. So we're able to sort of get an understanding, reflect on any feedback that I might have gotten, how could I better push myself in the right direction. So trainers have been a great help, as well as the wellbeing team have been massively helpful. They're always on our side, so it's always great to have someone within the company rooting for us every day, and every sort of success they celebrate with us. So safe to say that the wellbeing team, the trainers, everyone at 1010 have just been amazing.
Yeah, just more glowing feedback for the wellbeing team and the trainers. We hear it every time, but we love to hear it every time. So thank you for sharing it as well. Well, it's been great hearing about your client work, Hashan. Thank you once again for your time. One last question right at the end that we always like to ask is, there might be some people watching this who haven't even applied to the 1010 Academy, haven't even maybe considered that, you know, tech is a space for them and that they can take that step and maybe even have a career in tech. What would you say to people who are considering applying to the 1010 Academy?
It's a good question. I think what I would say is go for it. Simply because there's so many experiences, there's so many people that you get to meet, and there's so many different perspectives that you get to see. That's really exciting, as there's many people from different walks of life, people without any tech background at all. There's people that have done different degrees that are remotely not related to technology, but somehow they're able to pair it with their client and help push themselves forward in the tech industry. And I think 1010 is a great platform to sort of bring yourself out there, push yourself, and get your tech self out there.
Thanks very much, mate. That is a terrific summary of everything that you've been doing in your client work, and a wonderful endorsement for the 1010 Academy. So thank you for the time again, and thank you for the detail, and I'm sure you've helped a lot of people along the way.
Thanks, James. Thank you for your time as well.